Welcome to the Lost Boys to Found Fathers podcast. I'm Will Haycox, and joining me is my co-host, Gabe O'Sullivan. We're men who have suffered the loss of a child, and through this production, we have desire to offer encouragement, strength, and hope to our fellow brothers who have traveled the same journey.
What's up, Will? Good morning, brother.
Good morning, man. How you been?
Fantastic. So today we're going to have a topic that you put together. It's called the balancing act, and I think it's really good. I think we're going to get a few episodes out of this. So if you're listening, and I guess you are if you're hearing my voice, then hang tight, because it's going to be some good stuff that I think guys need to hear in order to help them get through the day. Right? Each day is just different when you've lost a child, especially initially. Certainly things get better as time goes. Just trust us with that, because we've been there, done that. But it's still tough, and things can still pop up. And we were talking with a buddy, I don't know, 2 weeks ago now, I guess, and he said to us, he was like, I think it would be helpful to have some information about, how does a guy just, get through a normal day? Because, you're having all these emotions that you're trying to, process and deal with and navigate as a dude, and then also be there for your wife. And then on the other hand, you got to get up and go to work, right? And you got to function. You got to keep your marriage going. You got to be there to take care of your other kids if you got other kids. And so yeah, let's get into this, Will.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, when you lose a child, it kind of causes everything in your world to just be turned upside down, and you just don't really know what to do, how to go back to normal life, or go back to what was normal before. And so that's kind of where we started, like I said, with that friend of ours that mentioned this. And so the question that we kind of started with today was, how do you navigate life amidst the pain of grief? And the simple answer, or the simple thing, the reality you have to deal with. A friend of mine, shortly after, it may have even been you, Gabe, I don't know, this first few months after we lost our son kind of blur together, but someone shared with me that soon after the death of our son, that life doesn't stop moving just because your world has changed. Like, you might feel like your life stopped moving, and it might have for a period of time if you were able to spend a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever time with your wife. Things might have felt like they stopped moving, and you got that chance to just be together and comfort each other and rest and just try to process losing your child. But everything else in the world keeps moving. Like, your job is going to keep rolling. Your friends have their own lives. They've got wives. They've got kids that they're going to try to take care of. And, even after the service, this just seems to be a common thing. I think Gabe and his wife found this, and me and Hannah found this. And, people that I've talked to that have also lost a child have found that in the week leading up to the service between your child's death and the funeral service, you hear from a lot of people, and people reach out, they talk to you, they say they're there for you, they pray for you. And then the days after the service, it's just kind of like radio silence. And I think that's, to be honest, it was a little bit hurtful for me. Like, it didn't feel like everybody was cutting me off, but it was just kind of like this stark contrast. Like, okay, so everyone was talking and was all about, checking on us, and now I'm not hearing anything. And I think that just comes back to what we were saying there, that the world doesn't stop because of when it felt like your world stopped, everyone else still has their responsibilities. So I think that's one thing, just kind of try to remember that everyone else still has bills to pay, they still have jobs, they still have their daily routines, and, eventually your bills, your job's going to want you back, your routines, like Gabe said, your kids that you have that are still living, they need you. They need you to be dad. They need you to be provider. And, it's something that you're going to have to eventually get up and go back to work. So, yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that I think about that is, like you said, I like this point you said, just because they returned to their lives does not mean they forgot about you. And I think that's a really good point, because I felt like you did. Well, I was like, man, it's like none of this happened. It's almost like this never occurred, and then you're dealing with this great tragedy and loss, and you feel this hole in your heart and the whole thing. But then it seems like everybody's just kind of like the world keeps clicking away, and it was easy to think like, oh, poor pitiful me, they forgot about me. But it could also be that not that they forgot about you, but they don't know how to handle this either.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't know how to process this, and they don't know what to say. And so our default a lot of times, instead of addressing the elephant in the room, or reaching out to somebody during their grief, is like, well, man, I don't know what to say, so I'm just not going to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so they may be grieving in their own way for you, but then they don't know what to say or how to comfort you. And so then they just, in their ignorance,
Mm-hmm.
they just say, well, I'm not going to say anything or I'm not going to call him or check on him at all because I don't want to say the wrong thing and screw it up, So that's one thing I found, and so I had to offer some people some grace, in that time period, and that took me a while to get to because I didn't understand that at first. That was conversations 1-2 years later that I might have had with some of my buddies, and they said those things. They were like, "Look, man, I'm sorry. I didn't reach out, but I just didn't know what to say, so I just didn't say anything. I just pulled away from you, and it was just they just didn't know what to say. Not that they forgot, not they weren't praying for you, but they just didn't know what to say."
Yeah, I think I was about to jump in and say that right before you did, that, to say you just need to give grace to you, the guy listening, that, you may be a few days out, a few weeks out, a few months out. It might feel like, why do I have to give grace to this person that should be, is my best friend, or is, somebody I know in church? Like, why do I have to give grace when I'm the one who's suffering and I just lost a child? And I think, like Gabe said, one, they want to do something for you. Your friends, your best friends, your coworkers, whoever, the people you have in your life want to help you. I'm sure if they could, a lot of them would take that pain from you and carry that burden, and you wouldn't have to deal with it. But obviously they can't do that. So they are supporting you in whatever way they can, or like Gabe said, they're pulling back because they feel like if they said something, maybe it would be more hurtful to say something that sounds ignorant. But what I was going to roll back to is where you ended there, Gabe, that you don't have to feel like, don't take the extra burden of, okay, so now I'm grieving, I'm hurting, my relationship with my wife is crazy, my relationship with my kids is crazy, and also I have to go and I have to reach out to my friends because they're not reaching out to me, or I need to give him grace, I need to forgive him for not calling me when I wish he called me. Like, I think the most that should be asked of you in this moment when you're grieving, and if you're feeling like your friends aren't reaching out to you the way that you should or they should, is to just have patience, just to try to have peace and try not to judge them too harshly. I think, like Gabe said, it may take a few months, a few years until it rolls around and you're able to have that conversation that Gabe's had about, hey man, I wish I reached out to you earlier and I'm sorry that I didn't. And at that point you have the hindsight of looking at the whole situation. You're a little further down the road and you can say, it's okay, man, I understand that you wanted to do something for me, you didn't know what to do, and so you didn't. I'm not angry. Like, I think it's important to clarify that we're not putting another burden on you to say you have to deal with your grief and your family, and you have to go out of your way to to tell these guys it's okay if you don't know what to say to me. I think what we should ask is that you are just to the point where you can remind yourself when you feel like they are ignoring you or they don't care about you. Remind yourself they do. Remind yourself that, eventually we'll be able to sit down and we'll be able to talk about this. And, honestly, I don't think you need to call them and say, like, hey, man, it's cool that you didn't call me yesterday when I was having a terrible day.
No way.
But just call them and talk. Like, you don't have to place another burden on someone because they don't know what to say. But call them and talk about sports. Call them and talk about work. If it's a coworker, you can reach out to. You don't need to feel like they aren't reaching out to you because they don't care about you, and you don't have to feel like you got to call them and just drop everything on them. You can call them and just stay in touch. And I think over time, if the Lord wills, that relationship will come back around to the intimacy that there once was, and you'll be able to have these conversations like Gabe said.
That's good stuff, man. And another point you bring up here says, when we get back to work, we might feel like we're going through the motions, right? And we're having a hard time caring about things that we used to care about or that used to bring us, enjoyment or fulfillment in life. Because you are going to be a different person after this experience, and like that's okay. Like that's okay. Like you don't go through something for nothing, right? So if you're a different person, it's for a reason, and yeah, it's going to change a lot of things about your life. It's going to change a lot of your perspective in life. And we've got to figure out, how do we then get back to somewhat of a normal when we're not different, when your normal is not going to be normal anymore. And, if you go back a few episodes, we got a few episodes on, like accepting a new not normal, I think was the name of that right there. And so, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how do we get back into life when we are just different people, but it doesn't seem like anything else is different about our lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, people I've talked to in our personal experience, I think that's a common thing to feel like, your whole outlook on life is shifted, your perspective is shifted. Whether you're in construction like I am, you're a chiropractor like Gabe, you're in business, you're in finance, whatever you're in, it's easy to feel like, hey, I just lost a child. How is for me doing quality control on this wall, is it really that important if this building leaks? Like, yeah, it's important, but it's not to the magnitude of my child just died. Like for you, Gabe, like this next person is really hurting. They need you to help them heal and give them an adjustment. But you can tell yourself, like, seriously, this person's in here complaining about a little bit of a backache. He's 23 years old. He's complaining about a backache, and I just lost 3 girls. And, like, it's really easy to write him off or just to judge people because you're just so jaded by their little insignificant problems in comparison to what you just went through. But, I think that perspective change is a good thing because it allows you to prioritize your life and to spend time with the people that matter, to spend time with your wife and to spend time with your other children if you already have living children. And if you don't, you get a chance to spend time with your wife, to heal with her, and also to spend time with the Lord. And, if you're angry at God right now, then tell him that, work through that, read the Bible, pray. Even if you don't feel like it, just, close your eyes and be like, Lord, I'm mad at you right now. I don't know what to do. I don't even want to talk to you, but I know I need to. And if that's all you can say, I think that's good, and he'll honor that. And
yeah, let me jump in there on that, the prioritize thing, because I think as we talked about how we're different people, you go back to work or to just family life, regular life, friend life, whatever, and we're having a hard time figuring out, how do we fit into our old life when we don't feel like we are a puzzle piece that fits into it anymore because we're different people. Then that gives us the opportunity, like you said, the word prioritize, which I think is great, because if we're thinking about priorities, what are we doing, right? We're sitting down and we're discovering what is really important and what's important now. So that gives us that opportunity to reflect and be like, okay, at home, what's important now? What do I need to be doing right now in order to help my wife, to help my marriage, to help my, self and my sanity? What do I need to be doing to keep my body healthy right now? Because it's easy to slip, into some destructive habits if we're on the pity party. What's important at my job? Like, what are some things in my career that I used to think were like uber important, but now that I'm a different person, what's really the goal here? Like, what's really my quest as I go to work every day? And then that helps us to like put off all the superfluous stuff that may have been hindering us, honestly, from achieving some goals that we could have been achieving if we had been more laser focused. And so I think that this gives us an opportunity to look at our entire existence and figure out what's important now. And if you ever watch Major Payne, if you've ever seen that movie, highly recommend it if you haven't. Super funny. He talks about, we're going to win. And he says, Whiskey Indian November. Something like that. What's Wednesday? What's Wednesday for? And it's supposed to be what's important now. And he was like, Whiskey Indian November. And so anyway, there's a movie you can go watch and find some humor during a difficult time.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I think all that stuff you said, you're prioritizing, and there's all sorts of stuff out there about what you should prioritize, how you find joy in your life and all this different stuff. And, I think you can go to some dangerous places with prioritizing where you're just like, the only thing that matters is what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
And if it's, if my wife's getting on my nerves and she's crying too much, then like, you know what, I'm just going to prioritize her out of my life, and I'm just going to go hang out with my friends and these guys so I don't have to talk about my child, I don't have to deal with that, or I'm just going to throw myself into sports, or I'm going to throw myself into my work. And so there's definitely some dangerous ways you can prioritize, and you can get to a point where you are neglecting the real responsibilities of being a husband, being a father, and being a Christian. But I think, like Gabe said, taking a step back, and maybe you're at work, you're on a lunch break, and you're just so beaten down you don't have time to pull out your phone and scroll through Facebook or whatever you watch some videos, whatever you used to do at lunch. You're just so beaten down, you just feel like, I just got to sit here and turn off for a minute. That's a good time to think about, what am I doing when I get home? Am I just going to sit in front of a TV and veg out for 4 hours, or am I going to actually talk to my wife for the first time in 2 weeks and ask her how she's doing, tell her how badly I'm doing, like whatever these things are that you find you need to do in your life, taking a chance to sit back, prioritize them, and then take some steps forward to be, who you were created to be, is the protector and a provider for your home. And, God ordained you when you and your wife got married. You were given the responsibility for protecting her, providing for her, caring for her emotionally and physically and spiritually. And, going to work and getting a paycheck is one of the ways that, we are providers. And, there's different family situations. There's some where both parents work, some where the wife works and husband doesn't work, whatever. But the norm, at least in South Carolina, is that generally the husband works, the wife may work or may not work. And so if you are accustomed to working and providing for your family, then, you need to get back out there and do that. And you can find ways to restructure around the edges. And like you said, Gabe, prioritize, cut out Netflix at night and add talking to your wife for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour or maybe even 10 minutes. And so I think just having this shake up in your life, this change of perspective, is God really giving you a chance to get back to what's important and to cut out some of these extra things. Like maybe you were too far down the path of being a fan of Clemson football or a fan of the NBA or whatever it is. You're just so wrapped up in your whole personality was based on that. And I think giving you the chance to step back and realize that, hey, like I enjoy watching some guys bounce a ball and put a ball in the hoop, or throwing this leather ball around and scoring touchdowns, but is that really more important than talking to my wife, talking to my kids? Like, no, of course not. So I think there's some hurtful things and some challenging things to get through with the loss of a child and the way you have to prioritize your life. But there's also some helpful things and some things that can really make a difference for you in your marriage and for you as a father of children that are still living.
I love it, man. And you bring up the point here next. It says, often you have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and do the next necessary thing. So talk about that. What do you mean when you say the next necessary thing?
Well, to be honest with you, the first thing that came to mind was I have a 2-year-old daughter, so we've watched Frozen like a million times in the past month. So there's like some line in there where I told myself I wasn't going to tell guys on this podcast that's where it came from, but there's some part of the show where like one of the characters is going through a hard time, and she's like, I just need to do the next right thing. And so I almost wrote the next right thing, and I'm like, that's plagiarism. I'm going to change the word. So no, I mean, I think that even if it's in a children's movie, the principle still stands that, all the things I just said about, you were given the responsibility for caring for your wife, caring for your children, and, maintaining your relationships with people at work so you can keep your job. and taking care of your home, whatever the responsibilities that you were given and you and your wife have split up at home, and maybe you take care of stuff outside the house, she takes care of stuff inside the house, or maybe the opposite, whatever it is. You have a lot of things in your life that people are counting on you to do.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to put another burden on you, but I say that, one, to tell you that you matter and you're important, and there are people that are counting on you in a good way, that their lives are made better and enriched by you in the way that you care for them. And also to say, we're men, we were created, as you go all the way back to the beginning of the Bible, Adam was created first, Eve was created second. Out of Adam came Eve, and Eve was created for Adam to be a helper for him, to be a partner for him, and he was given the responsibility to care for and protect and provide and to give himself up for her. And so in the same way, when you feel like you can't move forward, you don't know what to do, you can't stand to go in another day at work, you can't come home and mow the grass, you don't want to talk to your wife, in the back of your mind that doing one of those things is necessary and is important and is good and is right to honor the Lord, whether you want to feel that way or not, that it is. So sometimes you just have to put your head down and do it. And so I think that's, even if it came from a children's movie, I think that the truth still stands that, excuse me, many times you don't want to do a thing that you have to do, but it's a good thing and it honors the Lord for you to keep up your responsibilities, to continue loving and helping your family heal and grow. And sometimes you just got to pray for the strength of the Lord to do that. And I've got a verse here, unless you wanted to jump in before that verse.
No, I would say that we kind of pause here,
okay,
and let's bring that up in
cool.
the next episode, man, because
I
think that's a great thing of doing the next necessary thing.
Cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
And also, Frozen, it's a funny movie, man.
Movie.
I've seen it a bazillion times, too. I got a daughter. And Olaf is
Mm-hmm.
like the funniest character, dude.
Mm-hmm.
What's he? My favorite line is where he says, "Who's the smelly reindeer?" That's Finn.
Yeah.
And no, what does he say? "Who's the smelly donkey?"
Yeah.
Or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. That's Finn. And who's the reindeer?
Mm-hmm.
That's Finn. Oh,
Easier for me. Yeah.
man, dude, that was so
Yeah,
funny because
it's great.
he's always cracking on the dude. What's the dude's name?
What is
that?
his name?
I
should
don't
know.
know. You should. I know.
Sven and Christoph.
Christoph. Yes, he's always messing with Christoph,
he's
man.
always giving him trouble. But
That's
no,
funny
it's
stuff,
good.
dude. I remember when I watched the movie the first time, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be terrible." It's some girly movie,
I
but
thought the same
holy
thing.
moly, bro! It's like it's an actually.
It's pretty funny.
You got to give it a try.
Yeah.
I know this is not very manly for us to say you should watch Frozen, but
Yes.
there's a lot of plot twists, a lot of good stuff about sacrifice and giving yourself up and whatever. Anyway,
Yes.
I'm gonna stop that before we lose
before
more
we get
listeners,
too far
man.
down
So
into the Disney movie list.
there you go, man.
But,
So all right,
we
so
appreciate you listening today. We do want to make it a point to tell you where you can connect with us. So we say, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, but just want to say we are Lost Boys to Found Fathers on Facebook. We're Lost Boys to Found Fathers on Instagram, and Gabe has gotten us the YouTube thing set up, and he's continuing to work to put new episodes on there. And we are also Lost Boys to Found Fathers on that. You can look for our channel. On Twitter, we are Boys Found. And as always, we have the email now. It's lostboystofoundfathers, all spelled out, @gmail.com. So connect with us on any of those. We want to hear from you. Your encouragement, your criticism, your comments, whatever it is, we want to connect with you. So thank you for joining us today, guys. Make sure you follow Lost Boys to Found Fathers. You reach out to us any way you can. And check out Gabe's books. There's Thy Will Be Done. And there's also Every Little Thing, 6 Small Steps to Perfect Peace. You can find them both on Amazon. And remember, let's not be lost. Let's be found in Him.